into Texans today, everybody. I'm your host, Jeremy Chuggs, and coming up on today's show, just wanted to talk about, Stroud, Will Anderson, DeMeco Ryans all hit the podium today. All had some very interesting things to say about the draft, about some of the free agency moves, and just, I guess, the state of the Texans before the 2025 NFL draft. So I wanted to break all those things down on today's show. If you're new to the program, my name's Jeremy Chuggs, as I said. Make sure you hit that subscribe button for the one-stop shop Texans news and rumors you need all year long, 100% for free. All right, first, we got to talk about the franchise guy. We got to talk about CJ Stroud. Yeah! Did you watch WrestleMania this weekend? Let me know. So Stroud on the podium, he said some very interesting things, mainly about Bobby Slowick and Nick Caley. I don't want to read too much into some of this stuff, but I do want to kind of hit on this main point about him having more control, him having more say-so, because CJ Stroud said up there, he said, Nick Caley, he's all about me taking full ownership and running the show, and, that's something I haven't done the past couple of years. And he's talked about the new control in the offense, his new control in the offense, and his ability pre-snap and, seeing things at the line of scrimmage and changing things up. And he said, yeah, basically the past 2 years, I wasn't allowed to do that. I mean, we've had inklings, we've had kind of some sources come out and say that and kind of say like, oh yeah, CJ Stroud can't really do anything at the line of scrimmage, but I feel like this is the first time Stroud has straight up come out and said like, yeah, I wasn't allowed to do anything the past 2 years. I was basically set in stone having to do one thing at the line, and I wasn't allowed to change things if I saw the defense change things up at the line of scrimmage. Which, in today's day and age, especially when teams have film on you, I don't even know how that's a possibility going into year 2 of CJ Stroud. All these defensive coordinators have all this tape on you. They know what not only CJ Stroud, but what Bobby Slowick wanted to do and liked to do, and you're going to say like, oh yeah, CJ Stroud's not smart enough or doesn't have the ability to, make changes at the line of scrimmage. Like, I'm not in the, I don't want to read too much into things, or I don't want to, overstep, but I feel like Stroud's definitely, has it up here enough to make those adjustments and kind of learn year over year, especially going into year 2, about how he can get better at the line of scrimmage. Maybe I'm misreading it. Maybe I think too much of CJ Stroud, but I think with Nick Caley this year, he's set to have a career year. And I'm actually going to make this the pinned comment on today's show. So if you go down the comment section, the very top, this is going to be the main question. Will CJ Stroud have a career year this year? Give me a yes, give me a no, give me your reasoning. Let me know down in the comment section. If you get hit by a YouTube ad break here, all good. Scroll on down and let me know your thoughts. I think he's going to have a career year. Not an insane year by any means, because I do think they're going to try to run the ball. That's why I think the Texans, even though they have Joe Mixon, have been rumored to be looking at some of these running backs in the draft, because I think they want to get back to some more smash mouth football, running the ball and letting Stroud work off play action. I could see a somewhat similar to his rookie season where, he has somewhere in the high 20s in touchdowns, but hopefully keeps it under 10 interceptions on the season. This past year it was 20 touchdowns and 12 interceptions for CJ. But I really think he can kind of take that next step with this offense. And one of the big parts of this offense, I believe, is going to be running the football. And that's why I think Stroud's going to have a better year this year. But statistically, I don't think you're going to see a insane, high 30, 30-something passing touchdowns for CJ Stroud. Speaking of the offense, though, he also talked about how it's kind of similar to some of the other offenses that he's run before at Ohio State. He also mentioned New Orleans and obviously the Rams and the Patriots, and he said he's going to be able to put his swag on it, and he has a lot of trust in Nick Caley, which, was really good. And I got to tip my hat, shout out to Stutz and Landry, because I believe Landry Locker was the first one to kind of talk about the main difference between Nick Caley and Bobby Slowick was Nick Caley was a position coach before. Bobby Slowick was not. And his ability to connect with the guys in the locker room, talk to them on a human level, like face to face, and get the best out of his guys wasn't there. Bobby Slowick is a very smart guy, a very smart individual, good X's and O's guy. But I think when it came down to connecting with the guys in the locker room and being, a leader of men, I think that's where Bobby Slowick fell a little short, and I think that's where Nick Caley's going to come in and immediately improve. I think he impressed, DeMeco, Caserio, the McNairs, everybody in the Texans front office with what he brings to the table, just like from a, speaking to him across the table. I think he is a really good leader. I think he's going to be able to connect with these guys, and it sounds like he's already kind of connected with CJ Stroud because he said, I have this blind trust in Caley, and he's only been around him for a short period of time. So, those relationships matter, just like CJ's relationship with Steph Curry. We won't get into too much of that. I'm kidding. I'm mostly kidding around. But if you do want to check out, maybe, sit next to CJ Stroud for that next Rockets Warriors games, I can help you with that right here with our sponsor, Game Time. Get started today with the official ticketing partner of Texans Today. I love Game Time, Chat Sports. We all love Game Time, and you should too, because, hey, the Rockets are in the playoffs. I know they lost game 1. But H-Town needs to show up game 2. And the best way to do that, hit up the Game Time app because you can save up to 60% off buying last-minute tickets to sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more with our friends over at Game Time. And as the event gets closer, as game 2 of Rockets Warriors Western Conference playoffs gets closer, those prices, they're going to drop a little bit. And you can take the guesswork out of buying tickets with our friends over at Game Time. Get some tickets to the Toyota Center and make sure it's full, make sure it's loud, and make sure they can hear you so the Rockets can take this series back, win game 2 up against the Warriors. I know everybody's mad. Oh, CJ Stroud friends with Steph Curry. Hey, they're both ballers, right? I have no problem with CJ talking to Steph Curry, but I do have a problem if you're not going to the game and you're not making your voice heard and talking about CJ going to the game and being mad that he's talking with the Warriors guys. Because, hey, all you can do is get there and be loud and support your team, and you can do that with our friends at Game Time. They also have a new feature, Game Time Picks. It filters out all the fluff, helps you find the best deals on the app so you don't have to spend a bunch of time searching through the tickets. So download the Game Time app today, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. All right, let's talk more about these interviews, these guys at the podium. I'm going to continue to talk about a little bit more about CJ Stroud because speaking of trust, he also talked about trusting Nick Caserio, and he talked about blind trust, and then he talked about earned trust, and he said Caserio has that earned trust. He's earned it from me. And he did say something I learned about Nick is he has a plan. No matter what happens, he always has something up his sleeves. So he talked about, believing that Cagerio, believing this front office and DeMeco are going to, put up a good offensive line in front of him this year. And that kind of goes into our next topic of, DeMeco said, everybody watch out. Everybody hold on to your seats and watch out for the draft because the Texans, we're here and we're going to make some moves. And a recent, article by ESPN came out and it was talking about, the Texans and the Eagles and how they're the two most likely teams to trade in the draft. And they're two of the teams that you need to watch out for in the draft. And Adam Schefter saying the Texans, you got to watch out for them trading up. Well, no, duh. Nick Caserio loves some trades. The past couple of years, 2024, 4 draft day trades, 2023, 8 trades, 2022, 7 trades. He's going to make some trades. The Texans picks that they have right now, I will almost guarantee you, I would almost bet you anything that I have that the Texans will not have the same picks at the start of the draft that they have at the end of the draft. They'll have maybe a couple more, maybe a couple less if they trade up. And I think as we get closer, I could definitely see the Texans trading up. And especially with, you got to listen to what some of these insiders are saying. I had Aaron Wilson on the show this past week. He dropped a lot of good nuggets. Talking one thing that kind of stuck out in my head, I talked about Tyler Booker, and we'll get to him later on in the program because one of his old teammates had some very interesting things to say. And he said, I don't really like that pick for the Texans because you need somebody with positional versatility. And Daniel Jeremiah, I saw a clip of him today that said, I was told the Houston Texans will not pass on Kelvin Banks if he is there. Him saying the Texans won't pass on Kelvin Banks is also telling me the Texans are willing to trade up for Kelvin Banks. if they love him so much that that's what the pick is going to be if he's there at 25, why not spend a little bit more capital to move up 5 or 6 spots to get Kelvin Banks? I think that's the person the Texans have their eye on. I've been really high on Donovan Jackson. I know that the Texans are really high on Donovan Jackson too. I would, at this moment right now, I would say in order from most likely to least likely, I'm not even going to say least likely, but in order of most importance for offensive line, I don't really think Josh Simmons is in it that much for the Texans. I honestly think he might get taken before the Texans pick. Some stuff came out about his medicals today that it looks good. But I think they're really eyeing Kelvin Banks. I would say the next guy up is probably Tyler Booker and Donovan Jackson. Those are the 3 guys. And Gray Zabel. I'll throw in Gray Zabel. So those 4 guys, those 4 offensive linemen would be the ones I would be keying in on in the first round. I know, maybe a Josh Connolly Jr. I'm not as high on him as others are. The Texans obviously brought him in for a visit, as they did with almost all the first round linemen, right? They brought in a ton of guys on visits, on top 30 visits and local visits and whatnot. So I could really see the Texans going O-line, and after, these reports and everything talking about, CJ has trust in Caserio, and Caserio likes to make moves. DeMeco saying, hold on, we're going to make some moves. Just hold on to your seat and watch out. And then all these reports from insiders saying the Texans love this offensive lineman. Texans are willing to move up. I'm just saying, don't be surprised if the Texans move into the late teens to get Kelvin Banks in this year's draft. Now, I have one more person I want to talk about, and my guy, Will Anderson Jr. I've said it before, probably my favorite player on the team at the moment. He's, signifies everything the Texans should be as an organization and what you want in a player and a leader. I think, not to glaze him too much right now, but Will Anderson Jr., he is the cornerstone for this team in my eyes right now. And he had a couple points that he talked about how much he loves CJ Gardner-Johnson and the acquisition of him. He said he is everything I knew he would be: competitive, talk smack, and I absolutely love it. And I mean, you need some of those junkyard dogs. You need some of those guys on the back end, like a, guy who's going to be back there, crashing heads. And, Stingley is all pro. He's one of the best in the league. He's almost like a silent assassin, though. I feel like you don't see Stingley chirping a ton. Kamari Lassiter, he's just a Tasmanian devil. He's crazy. But CJ Gardner-Johnson, he's the guy who's going to get in your head. He's the guy who you hate playing against him, but you love him when he's on your team. Speaking of Derek Stingley and some of these other guys, he also talked about how he loves his teammates getting extensions. He said they are the future. Pause for a second. And then he said, we are the future, meaning all these young guys, him, Stingley, Jalen Petrie, who just got a contract extension. Danielle Hunter, even though he's a little bit older than, or not a little bit, he's older than all those guys. And I think this is great news for the Texans moving forward, because you have somebody who is so bought into this team and is, I hope Will Anderson Jr. is a Texan for life. And, he's due for a contract extension next offseason. Same with CJ Stroud. And when you have these guys on your side who are willing to, be a member of the team, fight for the team, he's going to want to get his bag, but it's going to be a collaborative effort. It's not his agents versus the Texans, where you see, I feel like that's how the Dallas Cowboys and Micah Parsons are right now. Like, it's his agents versus Jerry Jones, and you don't want that situation. You don't want long, drawn out, contract extensions where it's kind of muddy on both sides, because that's not good for anybody. That's not good for business, because you end up having to pay more usually. You end up having to shell out money or trade the guy, which worst case scenario. And 2, it doesn't lead to more team camaraderie. It doesn't lead to the guy buying in more, because it almost felt like it was like pulling teeth to get a contract, and you don't want that kind of back and forth with the guy. That's why I love that the Texans went ahead and did it with Derek Stingley. They went ahead and they extended Jalen Petrie before the year, even though he could have played out the last year of his contract, which, if he balls out this year, great move by Cagerio, because he would have probably gotten more after this season if he did ball out. And I think great news for the Texans moving forward, because I really hope they're able to get Will Anderson Jr. on a long-term deal. I wouldn't mind a 5-6 year contract extension if you're able to do that. Make him the highest paid defensive end in the NFL, which looks like it's going to be north of $40 million. But hopefully those new TV deals kick in and get some more salary cap relief for the Texans in the future. Another thing that he said that was very interesting is he was pushing for his man Tyler Booker. I told you we'd get back to this in the show. He was pushing for the Texans to take Tyler Booker. Talked about how much he loves his old Alabama teammate, which he gave a very compelling case. He, called him a mauler, said he's everything you want in an offensive lineman. He said the words, he's going to change whatever offensive line and franchise he goes to. He said he's going to change that franchise. He's talking about that's how good Tyler Booker is. I mean, if that's not a ringing endorsement for the guy, for this team to take him, I don't know what is. So that's why I kind of talked about earlier. I know the Texans love Kelvin Banks, but in their back pocket, they have Tyler Booker. They have Donovan Jackson, who they've showed a lot of interest in. Josh Connolly Jr. is there as well. It just depends. What is the run on offensive line going to look like in round one? How many guys are going to go? Because you assume Armin Membu, Will Campbell not making it out of the top 10, 12, if that. If either of those guys are on the clock for the Cowboys, they're taking O-line. It's the Cowboys. They love offensive linemen in round one. But if it is only 2 tackles in the first 12 picks, what does that run look like later on? The Dolphins have been interested at 13 in offensive line. Do they go with one of those guys? Plus, then you have the other teams in the teens where offensive line is a position where it never goes out of style in the NFL. Every year you need offensive linemen on your team, no matter how good your O-line is. Even the Eagles. Look at the Eagles. They're paying all their guys. They're paying all these guys up front. Guarantee you still, they're going to take an offensive lineman in the first 4 rounds of this draft because you always replenish the offensive line. You always got to do that. He's making a case for Tyler Booker. Should be very interesting to see where, this front office, where Nick Caserio, DeMeco goes in round one. They trade up for a guy, or maybe they stay put at 25 and get a guy like Tyler Booker. And the last thing I want to mention, something DeMeco said. Yeah, DeMeco said, and then Will Anderson kind of repeated to everybody. He said this: we can't stop until we put a bull on a ring. Put it on a freaking poster. We can't stop until we get a bull on a ring. Put it on a t-shirt. Stressins, go out there and put it on something. We can't stop until we get a bull on a ring. I absolutely love that saying. I want it all over the locker room. I want it on a t-shirt. I want it to be on my phone lock. Have it. We can't stop until we get a bull on a ring. Absolutely love it. That should be the mentality of this team. That should be the mentality of every Texan, everybody who watches this team. That should be the mentality, the mindset for this season and on for DeMeco Ryans and CJ Stroud until told otherwise, until a total downfall, is don't stop. Keep on pressing, foot on the pedal until we get a bull on a ring. Because I damn know this city deserves it. Houston deserves a football championship. We've been waiting. We've been, supporting this team. We've been really behind the Texans through a lot of downs, some ups as well. I'm ready for it. And it sounds like DeMeco, these guys, they are pushing for it. That's the mindset moving forward. And I freaking love it. I freaking love it. Now, that's all I have for you on today's show. Shout out Clear Lake. Class of 2015 Falcons, what's up? Once a Falcon, always a Falcon. Make sure to hit me up on Twitter at Jeremy Chuggs if you have any more questions, comments, concerns about today's show, or hit that subscribe button and make sure to get in the comment section and let me know. Because if you're subscribed, like I said, 100% free Texans news and rumors all year long, but it's not about me. It's about the Texans community that you have here on YouTube. We have the best Texans community on YouTube because of people just like you who are watching all the way to the end of this video. I appreciate every single one of y'all. Thank you so much for watching today's show. Make sure you tap in. Keep us locked in for everything going on, especially this week during the 2025 NFL Draft. I'll have all the coverage you need, all the picks, everything around the draft for your Houston Texans.